Deutschland im Schuldenrausch, July 30th, 2025. Finance Minister Lars Klingbeil stands before cameras in Berlin to unveil something unprecedented in German fiscal history. The 22-26 federal budget, 520.5 billion in core spending, but with special funds, the real total hits $630 billion that the borrowing figure makes veteran economists freeze. 174.3 billion in new debt. Not a typo. Triple, literally triple, the 50.5 billion borrowed in 2024 under the previous government. This is the second highest peacetime borrowing in German history, eclipsed only by the COVID emergency of 2021. Klingbeil speaks of investments in the future and modernizing infrastructure, but the numbers tell a darker story. Over the next 4 years, Germany will add $850 billion to its national debt. The debt-to-GDP ratio, once Europe's pride at 62%, will surge to 80.25% by 2029. Interest payments alone will consume $66.5 billion annually by decade's end, devouring resources before a single road is paved or school is funded. How is this constitutional? Germany's famous Schuldenbremse, the debt brake written into law after the 2008 crisis, should limit borrowing to 0.35% of GDP. That allows roughly $35 billion maximum. But in March 2025, the Merz government pushed through constitutional changes, effectively suspending the debt brake for defense and creating a $500 billion special fund that bypasses the rules entirely. The Federal Audit Office issues a stark warning. Debt is outpacing economic performance. But Klingbeil insists there's no alternative. $8.5 billion for Ukraine, $117.2 billion for defense, $126.7 billion in investments, a record high. One woman watches these numbers with cold calculation. Alice Weidel, leader of the opposition AfD, sees not investments but catastrophe. And in 8 weeks, she'll get her chance to say so, live in the Bundestag before millions. While Klingbeil spoke of investments in the future, Germany's economic present was disintegrating in real time. The numbers behind the $174 billion borrowing plan told a story of industrial collapse that no amount of debt could fix. July 2025, 1,088 companies filed for insolvency in a single month, the highest monthly total in 20 years. By year-end, economists projected 24,000 business bankruptcies, the worst since 2014. The financial damage from these collapses, $56 billion in 2024 alone, with 2025 tracking even higher. This wasn't a recession. This was structural economic collapse. August brought even grimmer data. Industrial output crashed 4.3%, the steepest drop since Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022. Automotive production, Germany's industrial crown jewel, plunged 18.5% in a single month. Manufacturing had fallen to levels not seen since May 2020. The depths of COVID lockdowns. Energy-intensive industries, down 7.5%. Mechanical engineering, down 5.3%. Pharmaceuticals, down 11%. The cause? Energy prices remain 300% higher than 2020 levels. German households paid 38 cents per kilowatt hour, the 5th highest in the world. Industrial electricity cost 20 cents per kilowatt hour, triple the rates in the US, 7 cents, and China, 8 cents. The government promised relief, $42 billion in energy subsidies through 2029, but that meant more borrowing, not solutions. Volkswagen became the symbol of Germany's industrial humiliation. In July, VW closed its first-ever factory in China. 2,500 workers gone. September brought temporary shutdowns at German EV plants as demand evaporated. The company announced 35,000 job cuts by 2030 at its German facilities and froze worker wages through 2026. When the world's cars could no longer be built profitably in Germany, something fundamental had broken. The Mittelstand, Germany's backbone of small and medium enterprises, faced extinction. 231,000 SME owners plan to close their businesses by year-end rather than find successors. High energy costs, crushing bureaucracy, and poor profit margins made small manufacturing businesses economically unviable. Another 199,000 businesses at risk of involuntary closure due to succession failures. Germany was experiencing its longest period of economic inactivity in 7 decades. The economy had contracted for the third straight year. Q2 down 0.3%, Q3 down 0.2%. And the government's answer? Borrow $174 billion, build nothing structurally new, hope debt could resurrect what policy had killed. Alice Weidel was watching, and her calculation was simple. When the system fails this catastrophically, the people demand an alternative. September 23, 2025. 8 weeks after Klingbeil's debt announcement, the moment of political reckoning arrived. The Bundestag chamber filled for the general debate, the centerpiece of Germany's annual budget debate, where the opposition confronts the government on live national television. But this year carried a weight unlike any since 1949. For the first time since World War II, a far-right opposition party would open the proceedings. Parliamentary tradition grants this honor to the largest opposition faction. That party was now the AfD. 3 days earlier, on September 20th, a bombshell poll had detonated across German media. The AfD had topped nationwide polling for the first time in its history. Not second place, not close behind, number one. The party that every establishment force had vowed to contain now led the country's political preferences. Alice Weidel, the AfD's co-leader and economic spokesperson, would deliver the opening address. Her party had spent weeks preparing, submitting nearly 1,000 budget amendments, a parliamentary avalanche designed to force votes on every controversial line item. Cut Bürgergeld welfare by $14 billion, eliminate climate funds, slash foreign aid, stop Ukraine weapon shipments. Each amendment a political landmine. Every major German network carried the proceedings live. ARD, ZDF, Phoenix. International media positioned cameras in the gallery. This wasn't routine parliamentary theater. This was a stress test of German democracy itself. Chancellor Friedrich Merz sat in the front row, constitutionally required to hear the opposition's critique without interrupting. His CDU-CSU-SPD coalition had governed for 6 months since the February election. 6 months of rising debt, collapsing industry, and plummeting poll numbers. Now he would face the consequences. The chamber buzzed with tension. SPD and Green deputies clustered nervously in their benches. CDU-CSU members shifted uncomfortably. Weidel's economic critiques resonated dangerously with their own voters. AfD deputies sat in disciplined silence, 151 strong, waiting for their leader to strike. The stakes were existential. A government borrowing $174 billion while 24,000 businesses collapsed. An opposition rising in polls by attacking that very recklessness. A system that had excluded the far right for 80 years now forced to give them prime time. At 10 a.m., Bundestag President Bärbel Boss called the chamber to order. Alice Weidel rose and approached the podium. The destruction was about to begin. Weidel's opening words cut through the chamber like a blade. Sie machen Politik gegen das eigene Volk. You are making policy against your own people. She didn't look at her notes. She pointed directly at Merz in the front row. Das ist der direkte Marsch in den Staatsbankrott. This is the direct march into national bankruptcy. The SPD benches erupted. Shouts, jeers. Bundestag President Boss raised her hand for order. Weidel continued, voice rising over the chaos. Wenn ein Drittel der Ausgaben auf Pump erfolgen, dann sind die Staatsfinanzen am Abgrund. When 1/3 of your expenditures are financed through debt, state finances stand at the abyss. She let the number hang. 174 billion borrowed. 520 billion spent. The math was undeniable. Then came the litany of collapse. Insolvenzen, Entlassungen, Deindustrialisierung und Abwanderung. Insolvencies, layoffs, deindustrialization, emigration. These weren't abstractions. July, 1,088 companies bankrupt in 1 month. August, industrial production down 4.3%. Volkswagen, 35,000 jobs eliminated. Real factories, real workers, real families destroyed. Weidel pivoted to the human cost. Verzweifelte Familien, gescheiterte Lebensträume, Häuser, die nicht mehr abgezahlt werden können. Desperate families, failed life dreams, houses that can no longer be paid off. Energy prices 300% higher. Small businesses crushed by bureaucracy and electricity costs. The Mittelstand bleeding to death while Berlin borrowed billions. Then the knife twist. 8.5 billion for Ukraine while German pensioners cannot afford heating. The chamber convulsed. Green MPs shouted. AfD deputies banged their desks in approval. This was the populist sweet spot. Foreign aid versus domestic suffering. Merz's face reddened. His aides whispered urgently. CDU backbenchers looked uncomfortable. This resonated with their voters too. Weidel reached her crescendo. She paused, looked directly at the chancellor, and delivered the line that would dominate every headline. Sie werden als größter Bankrotteur unter allen Kanzlern in die Geschichte eingehen. You will go down in history as the biggest bankrupt chancellor of all time. The Bundestag exploded. President Boss threatened Ordnungsruf, a formal disciplinary action. But Weidel had 20 minutes guaranteed by parliamentary rules. She wasn't finished, not even close. Weidel pivoted from destruction to construction. After exposing the wound, she offered the cure. Unser alternativer Haushaltsentwurf zeigt in rund 1000 Anträgen, dass dies möglich ist. Our alternative budget shows in roughly 1,000 amendments that this is possible. 1,000 amendments. A parliamentary siege designed to force votes on every sacred cow of the establishment consensus. The AfD's alternative was surgical in its radicalism. Cut Bürgergeld welfare not by Merz's timid $5 billion, but by $14 billion. Not reform, restructuring. Stop the magnet for migration into the welfare state, Weidel declared. Every euro saved would flow to German workers, German pensioners, German families. Eliminate the entire Climate and Transformation Fund, the green transition that had driven energy costs to 300% of 2020 levels. Abolished. Return to nuclear power. End renewable subsidies. Slash CO2 pricing. Cut industrial electricity costs in half within a year. Gut development aid. Reduce EU payments. Germany sends billions abroad while its own Mittelstand collapses. No more. The Ukraine provision drew the loudest reaction. Stop all weapons shipments. Redirect that $8.5 billion to Germans. Pensioners who couldn't heat their homes. Small businesses crushed by energy costs. Workers facing layoffs at Volkswagen. They are your responsibility, Herr Kanzler, not Kiev, Weidel said, pointing at Merz. She framed it as economic nationalism wrapped in fiscal responsibility. Die arbeitende Bevölkerung und die deutschen Unternehmen, the working population and German businesses, must come first. Not climate ideology, not Brussels bureaucrats, not foreign wars. Then came her most provocative move. Weidel turned toward the CDU benches. Her voice softened, almost conciliatory. Wir als AfD, wir sind bereit, in Angriff zu nehmen, wozu CDU und SPD offenkundig weder willens noch in der Lage sind. We as AfD are ready to tackle what CDU and SPD are obviously neither willing nor capable of. An open invitation. Break the Brandmauer, the firewall that excluded the AfD from power. Work with us. Save Germany together. Some CDU deputies shifted uncomfortably. Her economic critique resonated with their voters. Others looked horrified. Collaboration was unthinkable. Weidel had done something far more dangerous than attack. She'd offered a coherent alternative, broadcast live to 20 million Germans at the exact moment the establishment had none. By noon, Weidel's speech dominated every German news outlet. DW's headline captured the tone. Attacks and insults dominate debate. But what terrified the establishment wasn't the rhetoric. It was the substance behind it. She hadn't just hurled populist slogans. She'd cited hard data the government couldn't refute. $174 billion in borrowing, $850 billion debt trajectory through 2029, 24,000 business insolvencies, industrial output down 4.3%, Volkswagen cutting 35,000 jobs. Every number checked out. Every claim was defensible. The Left Party immediately demanded party ban proceedings. Weidel had crossed lines, they argued. Her nationalist economic framing bordered on extremism. In May 2025, Germany's domestic intelligence agency had already classified the AfD as a suspected far-right extremist organization. Now opposition leaders called for legal action to prevent the party from participating in future elections. But here was the establishment's nightmare. 3 days before her speech, the AfD had topped national polling for the first time in German history. Not second place, not close. Number 1. The party they wanted to ban was now Germany's most popular political force. Within hours, the speech flooded social media. Multiple YouTube channels uploaded the full address. Clips spread across TikTok and Instagram. Der Mittelstand kollabiert. Sie werden als größter Bankrotteur. U-174 Billion Debt Orgy. Each soundbite reinforced the core message. The system was failing. The establishment had no answers. The AfD did. Merz's CDU faced an impossible dilemma. CDU faction leader Jens Spahn could only respond, Wir brauchen wieder wirtschaftliches Wachstum. We need economic growth again. He notably avoided refuting Weidel's core economic data. He couldn't. The insolvencies were real. The industrial collapse was real. The $174 billion borrowing was real. The budget passed anyway. 324 votes for, 269 against. The coalition held. The Brandmauer firewall remained intact. Every Democratic Party refused cooperation with the AfD. But in public opinion, the cracks were spreading. Weidel had delivered an economically coherent alternative vision, broadcast to millions, at the precise moment the establishment had none. The speech wasn't just political theater. It was a manifesto for the millions watching their country collapse. And the woman warning of national bankruptcy, she was winning. October 2025, 3 weeks after Weidel's Bundestag assault, the crisis she prophesied deepens. The establishment passed its budget. The Brandmauer held. But nothing fundamentally changed. The economic collapse continues. October 8th brings new industrial data. Production falling again. The risk of recession returns, economists warn. Germany is experiencing its longest period of economic inactivity in 7 decades. The 2025 GDP projection, a mere 0.2% growth, effectively stagnation for the 3rd consecutive year. The insolvency wave accelerates. By year-end, over 24,000 German businesses will have filed bankruptcy, the worst since the 2014 crisis. Each month sets new records. Energy costs remain 300% higher than 2020 levels. The structural problem Weidel attacked remains unsolved. The Mittelstand continues bleeding. 231,000 small business owners planning to shut down rather than find successors. Politically, Germany is paralyzed. The 2026 budget debate drags through December. The CDU-SPD coalition bickers over priorities.